Thank you for your interest in the Retained Recruiter show powered by iIntro. Before the show starts, I have a small favour to ask of you. Our goal is to provide you with the most insightful, helpful and practical recruitment knowledge and know-how from the best in the recruitment industry. If you like this channel and enjoy watching our content, hit the subscribe button to get notified as soon as we upload a new episode. Thank you again, and as ever, we're rooting for your success. Now, time for the show.
Hello and welcome to the Retained Recruiter show. My name is James.
And my name is Jo. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a big show today, not just in terms of the number of people that have registered, but the number of people that are with us. I think we're going for a record today. It's 6 of us on here. Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining. Our topic for today is, are you business ready for 2025? And we've got a number of questions that we want to ask our panel today. So James, shall we meet the panel?
Yeah, I mean, we're delighted. Obviously, this is our first show of 2025. We just held back a few weeks. We wanted to collate and get everybody together. So we're really excited to welcome all of our guests. And so what we'd like each of them to do is, hopefully in about 30 seconds, just do a brief introduction. And I'm going to be very chivalrous. I'm going to say, Tony, let's start with you, if that's okay.
Certainly, yeah. Hello, everyone. So I'm Tony Phoenix Coles. I have a 19-year stretch in corporate technology recruitment. The last 12 years of that was in leadership, and I left that role as the managing director to set up my own technology recruitment business, which was a couple of years ago. However, with my experience and what I've learned, I've expanded into 2 different business areas that I believe are fundamental to true fulfillment and how I define success. And they are a wellness business and a coaching business.
Excellent. Thanks very much. I think if I timed that, it probably was 30 seconds perfectly, but I didn't. Next, we'll go to Keith. Keith.
Thank you, James and Jo. And hi, everyone. Those of you know me, I've been in the industry for 32 years. I was part of the progressive brand that eventually became S3 when that floated. About 7 or 8 years ago, we decided to open the Power Hive, which is a recruitment leadership community, which both Matt and Gary as partners are in, and Tony's in as a member of that. And since then, I've grown one of those divisions into the Power Mind, which is the mental health and wellbeing program. So it's a busy time, and hence I think this conversation will be very, very interesting.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Gary, let's move over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody, and thanks ever so much to James and Jo for having me. Really excited to be part of the panel today. So I'm Gary Caudry. I've been with Bullhorn fast approaching 10 years. I'm the sales director for what we term our mid-market, which is essentially businesses that range from a low end of sort of 10 users to a top end of circa sort of 300, and we're responsible for the UK and Irish market. Bullhorn is as a platform of recruitment-centric tools and features. So I've no doubt we'll be touching upon some of those today, not least automation and AI and what that means for businesses looking to scale up across 2025. So pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. And finally, Matt, sit up a little bit higher so we can see the brand on your top. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Half man, half billboard. I love it.
They were a great band. Pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure. My name is Matt Comber. I'm the CEO of a company called SourceFlow. Similar to Gary, been in and around the space for about 11 years, specifically on the tech side, but worked in recruitment a little bit longer than that. I'm not going to give my age away on that one. Before SourceFlow, was one of the founding team at a company called Volcanic, which sold in 2019. And then I've been lucky enough to rebuild another company, SourceFlow. We're a recruitment website marketing technology provider. We work with recruitment and staffing only in this space. It's what we've done specifically for a long time. Integrated with companies like Bullhorn and supported by organizations like the Power Hive. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Hopefully I can bring my kind of tech, AI, marketing kind of brain to some of the discussions we're going to have today.
Brilliant. Well, our aim is to tease all that information out of you. And it's interesting when you sort of pull all that and combine with Jo and my experience. There's over 100 years of recruitment experience on this little group today. So hopefully we're going to have some great points to share. Jo, why don't you kick us off with the first question?
Absolutely. So thanks for everyone who's joining us on here, by the way. If anyone does have any questions as we go through, we will endeavour to try and squeeze them in. We do have quite a few topics that we want to cover today, and some very particular questions that have come in for the guests. So in terms of topics, what we're going to cover, first thing we want to talk about is practical strategies that our panel today would recommend if we are wanting to scale our business in 2025. So top tips and techniques and approaches that they would recommend for scaling business in 2025. Topic 2, we want to talk a bit about AI and automation, not a massive topic, of course. So all about AI automation and how we should be using that smartly and wisely in our businesses. That's going to lead us nicely on to another topic, which sometimes we don't think is connected to AI and automation. We're going to talk about community. So get our panel's thoughts on community. Is it important? How important is it? And how can we be, creating communities in 2025? Topic 4, there's a lot going on. So we're going to talk about candidate and client attraction. These are going to be 2 major topics for this year as well. So thoughts and tips on how any tools and techniques that we can use to attract top candidates and clients. And then I'm hoping at the end, because we ask all of our guests this at the end of every session, so I'm not going to put you on the spot at the end. I'll give you a bit of time now, but we ask everyone for 1 tip. If you could give someone 1 tip going into running their business or building their business in 2025, what would it be? So I'll just pose that for a little bit later on. But yeah, James, let's talk first and foremost about practical strategies that we can employ this year as business owners to scale our business.
Let's target that to you, Keith, really. So why don't you give us your views and thoughts on this one?
Okay. That's a lot.
Just the first question. The first question is just, what practical strategies would you recommend to scale your business in 2025? I know it's probably a lot.
Yeah, there are practical strategies, but I don't think when you say the word strategy, these things come out overnight, because it's not something you can immediately. Well, there are some things you can do tonight that will solve tomorrow's problems, but mainly when you're talking on strategy level, you're talking about ideology and philosophy of your business. And I think that's probably key. And then within that, you can sew in and worm in the different tools, technologies, systems and processes and what have you. However, since I'm on the spot and you've asked me the specific question, I think there's a few things that I would suggest as a recruitment agency owner. Know your numbers more than anything else. A lot of people don't really look at their numbers on a more micro level rather than the how much am I earning, what is my staff turnover. I think the obvious stuff that we'd expect. But when I say know your numbers, I think things like your ratios. Know every single ratio in your business. You should know how many calls it takes to get a business call. You should know how many business calls it makes to get a job. You should know how many of them get to an interview, what your interview to placement ratio is, CVs to it. You should know all of those things. Because I think once you know them, you can then reverse engineer that ideology. And once you can reverse that, you can measure it and then you can scale it. So you can make your bottom line big figures and big numbers because of those things. But I think knowing your numbers would be one thing. Secondly, I'd say know your business model and expand your business models. Obviously, you guys promote the retained model, which I'm a big fan of. Most people in recruitment tend to operate around a contingency model. There are some that stick on perm and contract and have an international. So I think if it was me, I would, be good at what you do, but have a strategy where you were going to plan to adopt all the other models that are out there for your business as well. Because until you've tried them, you've tested them, and you've kind of really felt whether that's like what's like for your model or your business rather, you don't know what's going to bring in the most money. So someone say, well, that doesn't work for me, and you've not tried it. It's a lot of rubbish. So I think I would say know your models as well. And then finally, I'd say know all of your routes to market. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about tech today. I'll leave that thunder to Gary and Matt specifically. But if you don't know the routes to market and every opportunity, this being one of them, this is a good window for people to see what I talk about and what the other guests talk about. But if you're not using your social media, your email, your own referrals, your SMS, heaven forbid, get on the bloody phone and make a phone call. If you're not doing all of the routes to market available to you, you're probably losing out on a revenue stream that you've not forgotten of. So I guess those 3 things for me.
That's great. That's a great little start there. I just picked up 3 little tidbits. I'm just going to sort of summarize them. Know your numbers, know your market/models, and know your routes to market. So again, some little takeaways for people to take away. Should we redirect that question over to who should we redirect it to, Joe?
Matt.
There you go, Matt.
Yeah. Firstly, I echo everything that Gary just said there. Keith just said that. I'm going to come from a slightly different angle, which is what the world I live in, and kind of give advice around that world. So the first thing, and we had an event yesterday in Manchester, and I actually asked this to the room, and it was a really interesting answer to it, which was some of the organizations who join this call are going to have marketers within their business, or they're going to have people that do marketing within their business as a more kind of broad stroke. And it always makes me laugh, like how little view marketing actually has of sales of the CRM system that exists. So quite commonly, in what I found from the room yesterday was that hardly any of the marketers in the room had actual licenses for the CRM systems that their sales team were using. Now, in the tech space, that's almost unheard of, right? Like that would almost never happen. In fact, marketing are a central buyer of the CRMs that we would use in the tech space. HubSpot, if you think of that, it's kind of a marketing suite that became a sales CRM. In that space, Salesforce, be very unlikely that a marketer wouldn't have a license to it. But in this space, it seems that actually marketing are kind of kept out. At the same time, we've got owners of businesses, as we should, asking how much money are we making from marketing. It's very difficult to do that if you don't know what the placements are actually being made. It sounds a bit odd, that doesn't it? But it's exactly how it kind of works and happens. I think this year I would plan to bring your sales and marketing teams closer together than maybe you ever have done, and your sales and marketing function closer together as a commercial function and drive that better. And that is going to be a human thing. It's going to be a technology thing. It's going to be a strategic view of how we do that. And that will help us see better growth by doing that. By knocking those silos down, you will see better growth, right? Tech companies tend to grow quite quickly because they have less silos within them. That'll be one of them. My second point, probably only have two real takeaways on this, is there's a lot going on out there in conversations around tech and channel acquisition and all the different places AI could be used and automation. It's a lot. It's actually quite overwhelming, I think, in terms of the amount of tools. I think somebody told me yesterday, I don't know if it's a real stat, but it's like 2 billion AI tools or something like that have been kind of created. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I presume AI tools are creating AI tools at this moment in time, but there's a lot going on there. I personally think that when we look at acquisition, whether it's clients, whether it's colleagues or into your own business or whatever it might be, the reality is that we need to focus on a channel and we need to focus our minds on what works. I would personally look at this year focusing on one, especially when you think of like attraction. Find a channel that works for you and double down on that channel and get the most out of it as you possibly can. You know, somebody was talking yesterday from Rackbound about the law of diminishing returns. Work a channel until you get diminishing returns on the channel, and only at that point, when your effort isn't kind of keep going up, but it is kind of plateauing, should you really start to think about moving on to different channels. So if LinkedIn is the one channel that works for you, absolutely focus on it. Have social media, have a great website, have the other things, but in terms of where you're going to put effort, obviously bigger businesses are able to do more, and so there's a scalability question there. But I think with the majority of us in businesses, we're not running 1,000 head recruitment agencies. We're running, between 20, 100, 200, 300 kind of head businesses, and sometimes lower than that. And the overwhelm is a real thing. So I would say focus on what is working for you and milk that for as much as you can possibly get from it this year. And then obviously once you start to get more and more, then we can start to spread the channels out. But try and avoid the overwhelm with a kind of hyper focus.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's so common as well. And that is an incredible figure, with the number of sort of tools and things that are out there. I see that quite a lot, with my clients and out there in the industry is they're just buying tools and not necessarily really knowing how to use them or spending the time to get to use them and to really embed them into their business. So I think that's a really valid point. So looking at return on investment, looking at the tools that you've got, looking at what return am I getting from them, making sure we're measuring that, and then doubling down on the stuff that's working, which makes absolute sense. Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Tony, I'd like to come over to you if that's okay. So you spent a lot of time now.
Sorry, Joe, just to interrupt. I just want to add to that, if you don't mind, very quickly. Most of those 2 billion probably do 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 things.
Yeah.
as well. That's the key, isn't it? So it's just to highlight, there's not 2 billion ways to go to market or to do it. It's just know what works for you of those 2 billion, I suppose.
You're such a killjoy, Keith.
Yeah,
Every thought we'd come out with thousands of new strategies to go to market there.
Billions.
I'm gonna pose that question in a bit, actually, about how do we therefore know as a business? How do you know, or what can you do to try and find the best ones? And I think we're going to be able to connect that a little bit further down the line, actually. So I'm gonna stick that there for now. Tony, you work with loads of businesses. You work with loads of business owners. What are you seeing going to be some of the sort of key approaches and key things that you think the businesses should be focusing on in this coming year?
I'm just going to angle it with my experience of 12 years of boardrooms, budgets, forecasting, looking at the broader economy, having conversations like this, thinking about the people that are listening to this now. And obviously, I've been out of that with a very different lens for the last 2 years, but I've had a much broader scope within those businesses themselves. And there's something that I have lived and seen and experienced. And this sits around acceptance and having a genuine look and feel about the brand, right? So whatever the business name and brand is, right? So acceptance of what that is. And the people are the core of it. Without the people doing those numbers and inputting that, yes, we can have all the AI and tools, okay, but the people are the absolute central point. And a lot of people invest around how we're going to get more out of those people. How do we retain them? How do we make them happier? How do we add to that culture? But people come and go, okay? And your business is the main constant. So I would really be encouraging business owners to sit and hold with the acceptance of what their business looks like with this fluidity of their best performers or leaving tomorrow. And what have they built that is not necessarily a blueprint, but some things with a blueprint element, which things can adapt and evolve as there are different either economic changes, and just a real acceptance so that they are the things that can be focused on, so that the core essence of their business, which is the stability, because that doesn't go. I've worked for a business that went into administration and it came back out, and I believe they're in a good place now with different areas. Like anything can happen and it's wild and the people will come and go. So really focus on the core elements with everything else that you can come in and out. I hope that offers enough clarity. It's not too ambiguous with what I'm trying to say.
Did you say the 4 elements there, Tony? I might have misheard. Did you say focus on the 4 elements?
I said core elements.
Core. Sorry, I've got really,
okay.
my headphones aren't working that well today. I'm actually getting a little bit squeak. So apologies. Core. I think that makes sense to me. So that's helpful.
He's trying to pin you to 4 now. You see?
No, I promise you, I'd caught 2, but I'd caught 2 in my mind, but I didn't know whether you were saying 4 or I missed 2. Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Tony, I think that's great. Thank you very much. I want to bring Gary into the conversation, but I want to slightly turn the conversation, if we can, now to this second topic. Whilst we're talking about strategies, there is a you guys are absolute powerhouses in the tech world, and you have a lot of insight into tech. So I'd like to pose the question again, not a massive question, of course, of what from a tech perspective, what tech do you think trends or tools and things are shaping recruitment, and what should we as business owners be keeping our eye on and looking out for in 2025? Not all 2 billion, like Matt said. Can we narrow it down?
It's a great question. I think I would start by challenging business leaders to assess how much they understand their data, because recruitment as an industry is people centric, always has been, always will. But many businesses that have been serving in particular verticals, niches, markets, geos, have accrued an incredible mass of intellectual property, which is, of course, is their data. And time again, we speak to businesses, as you would expect, that tell us they are only getting 5-10% out of their investment with whoever it might be, or that they've got all of this data and they haven't tapped into it, and they think they've only engaged maybe 10% of the candidates on their database or whatever it might be. And then you start to think, well, there's a huge opportunity here, and it's 2025, everybody. So when you look at businesses like Amazon and successful enterprises, like they have thousands of employees, they are still people centric, but they have used tech in such a clever, innovative way that it's seen them go through hypergrowth. And I think sometimes within recruitment, there's this like general acceptance that we're not technologists, and therefore, it's not, that opportunity doesn't apply to me. And it's the polar opposite. We are now living in an age where school leavers have had mobile devices in their hands for 5 years. Like they're digital minded and do not expect to have to pick up the phone to submit an application for a job or to send a passport to a consultant, and little things like that. And so I think how the businesses assess themselves in 2025 as being attractive to investors as well. And for me, it's all about evidencing that you have repeatable, scalable processes. And to Tony's point, if some of those big hitters were to leave, do you have a process in place that allows newcomers to almost fall in line and replicate that success? And to Keith's opening gambits, are you surfacing your analytics and knowing your numbers to the point that it's easier, I shouldn't say really easy, but it's easier for new hires, for juniors to understand what it takes to be successful. And I think there's a massive opportunity right across the board for businesses to smarten up a little bit in terms of understanding their data and having their data work harder for them.
Yeah. That's
should be some more comments on that. If you want to sort of extend that one out if we can. Thoughts from you, Tony? Any thoughts on you on that? Sorry,
my interconnection just.
We know we saw you. I'll give you a second. We'll flick over. We'll flick over to Matt. We'll let Matt whilst you reflect on and catching up on that conversation. What are your thoughts, Matt, on tech trends?
Matt,
we lost you. We lost.
We can't hear you.
I was muted. I did the old 2021 trick, wasn't it? Being on mute. I've got noise, like a noise cancelling microphone here. I don't know why I mute myself, but it's. I echo what Gary said. The big tech trends really for the year it is probably around the evolution of automation and AI, right? Like that's going to be the larger trend continuing for the year, the way that I see it. And I suppose this space, the recruitment space, is kind of a bit odd. Something what Gary just said, there's almost like a reticence to kind of put itself as a tech industry, really. And I don't really know why that is, because technology is the heart of a lot of the stuff that we do now in the world, and in this space, it's central to the way things work. I think what we'll start to see more of this year is the day-to-day use cases of AI as things that we do become the norm. And I think we're seeing examples of it now. We're a Google business here in terms of how we operate. It's all Google Docs, Google Sheets, slides, the whole thing. We've just had Gemini embedded across our suite here. And for a little while, I've been wondering, I wonder what that would mean for me. And actually now I'm using it every single time I open a doc or a spreadsheet or a slide deck. I'm literally, the first thing I'm doing is using Google's Gemini AI product to help me craft what I actually want to do. It is making me more efficient. I don't have a multiplier on that. Everyone's got a stat on that, but I know I'm better when I use it, right? I get to the end point. And I think what we're going to see from the AI side of things, and you look at companies like Bullhorn, they're embedding it in the normal day-to-day use case for recruiters in the industry to make them more efficient. It's not necessarily making people more money. Like, I don't know if that ties there. That might be a byproduct of all of this, but it's definitely making them more efficient and giving people more time to do other good stuff that they really want to do in their job. We've got some stuff coming from our side of things, which is purely focused on the candidate experience and totally changing how that's worked from a web point of view, improving something that's been in place for 30 years or so, how websites have worked in a certain way. We've got AI tech that now enables us to do a very different thing on that. And that will become a day-to-day norm then for candidates. So I think what we're going to see is AI normalize probably quite a lot this year. Automation, obviously, is going to be a continual piece on that. I don't think, to blow your trumpet too much here, Gary, but I don't think a company promoted automation in the recruitment space from a tech point of view anywhere near as well as Bullhorn ever did. And we're kind of first to it, and then obviously have kind of dominated off the back of that. Other people are doing that. Sorry, Gary. But other people are doing that, right? And there's a natural curve that happens there, right? MapQuest followed Google Maps, I suppose you could say, from that side of things. We all remember MapQuest, don't we? But people will follow, and there will be more automation kind of going on. I think the big trend that I'd see from automation this year is actually like data enhancement and database cleanliness and like general data quality is going to be the big trend probably for automation this year. If we just partition AI out for a second, automation is at its best when your database is enhanced. We ask for small bits of information, then we enhance it through systems that exist within our CRM systems. We have better systems then in place, so we don't have to ask for really long forms anymore. We don't have to do that. We can ask for a little bit, and then we can use tech that's out there to enhance, augment, I guess, the data we collect. And then from there, we can obviously then have better experiences through automation because we're automating off the back of better knowledge and better data. So I think 25 will be a lot more focus on data enhancement and CRM cleanliness to make automation even better than it's been. And the upshot of that is then AI is absolutely at its best when all of that data is in a much more high quality state. We can actually do hyper personalization and all that kind of good stuff with it. So I suppose that'll be the trend probably that we'll see. I think we'll see a lot more of this year anyway.
Gary?
Gary, can I ask you a question, which hopefully you might be already getting to, but I'm sitting here thinking what Matt said there, and at the end he just got away with it because I was going to throw this back at him otherwise, but he actually gave me a very specific example. I'm thinking something within Bullhorn. When we talk about either AI or automation, I'm thinking of a practical example that somebody listening to this today can say, what will that do for me? Because we all hear the talk about AI and automation, but it sort of goes over our heads because we don't know the actuality of what it really will do for me. And I don't know whether you've got some examples of what you're doing in Bullhorn, which makes the life of, as Matt said, makes the life of the recruiter more efficient or easier or better. But what is it?
I'm going to shamelessly plug our playbook at this point, our automation playbook, which has been essentially written by recruiters for recruiters. Every one of those examples that features in it is a real world automation concept deployed by an agency. And they vary from really very simplistic things to some quite convoluted sequence-based automations. But we've had examples, and I'll use this one because it references a website. It'd be wrong of me not to, with SourceFlow on this call with me. But as simple as campaigns that go out to candidates, reminding them that live vacancies are published on a website. Now, everybody here might be thinking that is so obvious and so simple. But there's a particular client in question that spoke to this in one of our user groups, and we'll talk user groups and communities before the call is out, that referenced that they've got this database full of candidates that they've serviced over the years. They've been a niche operator for 20 plus years. They've got a database of 100,000 plus candidates, and they have live roles that sync to their website from their Bullhorn instance. And so every now and then they just go out to candidates that are engaged, and they can see these candidates are engaged with their digital content. They open the newsletters, they click through emails they receive. And so these are the top engaged candidates on their CRM, and they remind them that there are live roles available on this page. When the candidates arrive at the website and they look at the jobs, they don't always necessarily apply there and then. Consultant is notified that they were looking at the job, so they can then go and follow up with that candidate, strike while the iron's hot, and they've made placements off the back of it. And I think to myself, well, what is good about that? Well, it's extremely efficient. And we talk all the time in this industry about the fact that agencies already own so much data that they're not tapping into. Yeah. Secondly, how helpful for the consultants. So this is data, when I referenced earlier in my opening game, it's about data working harder. Well, the data was working while the consultants were all having dinner that evening, and they'd come in the following day to see that actually all of these applications have been viewed but not followed through with, hot leads on a plate. And so then it creates that buy-in. And that's just one of so many examples. And also it just talks to the fact that we can reduce data silos. The website and your CRM should be working closely together like that. Because then if your CRM is updating your website, and if your website's updating your CRM, it's one version of the truth. And that in itself is an opportunity for automation and AI. So again, it's just an area for people to kind of challenge themselves. Like, do we have that level of integration going on in our business today? Because if you do, there's just so much that you could be doing. So much. So that's one example.
How do we get that playbook, Gary? I know you said it's a shameless plug. Is it available to anybody, or do you have to be a Bullhorn client?
Buy Bullhorn.
Shameless plug.
That one, James. Come on.
Tony, have you had a chance to think about things that you can add in there?
You know, I'm just going to add a small point, and that is, for me, I think people should really focus on frictionless recruitment. Okay, there's been so many different topics and debates around AI, the takeover, the people side, and I think we've now got enough evidence that if we can get AI to work for us with everything that is simple, speeds up time, greater responses, utilizing data, etc., I don't think you'd have anybody who would disagree with that. And there's not many people that would say, actually, you will still always need the human. So regardless of who you partner with, who you subscribe to, whatever you choose to use, it's a set process once you know it. And then it's making that as frictionless as possible for the customer and using that lens and making sure it has the right feel, tone, voice, everything else that goes with it. And I think just, again, I've been looking at everything with that one lens, frictionless recruitment.
Again, I'll add to that if you don't mind, before your next question, guys. I don't want to scare anyone, but we've talked about this a few times now. I started automation recruitment, 10 years ago, and it was like witchcraft. And it's not now. In fact, it's strange if you haven't got it right. But you know, last chat I had with Matt, I think it was, and certainly some of the other guys in the tech side, the question was, do you think it'll replace automation now? Will it replace the humans? I think we all agreed it wouldn't. But I think what we came out with is a stark reminder, though, that the companies that are using automation and tech will beat the companies that are not. And I think the biggest thing is that the scaredy cats out there that are going, I really don't know what to do, where to do, how to go, what to do. Well, this is the whole point of these types of things and why we have communities, because that's where you can learn what works for you and what works best. But make no mistake, if you are not adopting them, you're going to get beaten by those that are. And that's not that to scare people or put fear up their backside. But I think it's important. I think, Tony, you're right. Once you've got those clear parameters of what works best, make it as frictionless as possible. I like that terminology, Tony. I'm going to nick that.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Tony.
I think we all scribbled down frictionless recruitment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tony. I hope you haven't.
We did. Yeah.
Because we've all got it.
No patent.
No.
It's okay.
You've got to look at your digital experiences elsewhere. Tony's point to come to life. Like when you're now like shopping on websites and things like that, how easy and how streamlined they've made their workflows and
yes,
to engage with the checkout process or whatever it might be. Even when you sell your car these days, you don't actually have to sell it privately and speak to people. You just go to some of these online services and a few clicks later, it's done. So, I think we can learn from those experiences too.
Yeah, I think that the whole idea of frictionless recruitment it's great, because we've got to look at the candidate experience and the client experience. We're going to come on to that in a second. But I also think it's really important for the people within our businesses, the recruiters,
100%.
You need to try and create the most efficient processes that you can for people to enable success. And the amount of people that I speak to, recruiters who are leaving organizations because they just can't get ahead. They just can't get on. They've got a broken CRM. It doesn't connect to anything. There's no sort of, synchronicity between anything in the business. So absolutely, I think that's a really good point. Do any of you, before we move on to the next topic, is there anything else you guys want to say around AI, automation, any other points you want to bring up at this point? Any other sort of anything you want to signpost?
I just highlight that last thing you just said. There's a stat, and in the last Power Hive event we spoke about this, but I think the stat is more generally going around that I think was it a third of the consultants in the recruitment industry in the UK left the industry last year.
Yeah.
I've seen it recently. The kind of quote where I came from.
Yeah.
It was that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Is that the biggest maybe in a year ever? Probably is the biggest that we've seen. And you think, why is that, right? And you think, is it a generational thing? Was it new talent in? I think that was a big part of it, right? New talent that's come in, and you wonder, is it new talent that's come in with this, like I've got a 4-year-old boy, and he knows, like he is good with technology, right? Like there was no real technology. Like we had an Atari or like an Amiga, probably 500 or something when I was a kid, right? But like he is really good, like scarily good. He can turn the lights on around the house by speaking to a little box and things like that. It's like we're at Blade Runner levels here with things. And I wonder, are people coming into the industry working for businesses and thinking, God, these are so old fashioned? Like, is this what the recruitment industry is? Is it all antiquated technology and can't use it on my phone? And, and you think, is that actually adding to it? So if you're bringing people into the industry, are we actually just setting them up with really bad technology, are they kind of laughing at like how maybe antiquated we are in our businesses? But I would, so to your point, I look at the amount of people that have left the industry and think, have they gone to businesses where they're just so far behind that they think, I need to get out here and go and work for this cool fashion e-commerce company down the road that's got AI and all this other kind of stuff, right? Maybe we need to look inside a little bit at how we were set up in the first place as a bit of a warning to us about attraction long term. There will be obviously other factors there about like resilience and all those kind of things. I do take that, but I do think, sometimes you can look at yourself, haven't you, and say, like, are we actually as good an industry and a business as we think we actually are? And then should we be taking those steps to kind of future-proof that?
I think that goes to the point that Tony made 10 minutes or so ago about how the one constant is your business, and if your business doesn't have those processes and methodologies that can support future growth, because as Tony said, people will come and go, but that point you raised there, Matt, about the churn in the industry is really it's disturbing, really. And I say it may be they're looking for cooler brands, so maybe we've got to look as an industry and say, hey, listen, we need to adopt all these AI automation to make our business models a little bit sexier. It's one of those things, and I think the thing that people crave in some respects is that certainty. When I come in, and let's talk about recruitment. Come into recruitment, can this business help me make money? Because employees, at the end of the day, they look at what's in it for me. They want to do that. And I mean, one of the things that Joe meets lots of business, as we all do, and we do. But as you know, we focus on retained, which is just one section of the market that we work through. But a lot of people think we're a tech company, which indeed we are at iIntro. But what we are is we're all focused on process and methodology, putting in place structure so that people can do that. And so what I'd say is, if you can adopt process and methodologies into your business, that actually drives people in a very different way. So, and I hope you've noticed all these banners which are flashing up to take account of people's details so you can get in touch with them. So there's my shameless plug. Hey, listen, have a chat with us, but hey, we're plugging everyone else as well to make sure that you do get in contact with them, because we know in this session today, there's going to be points that come up. You think that resonates. I'd like to probe that a bit more. How do we get hold of Matt at sort of, so from those side of things. Make sure that you do make note of those bits and pieces. But Joe, let's go on to the next question, because it's an interesting topic coming up.
Yes, absolutely. So we're talking a lot about tech. Again, businesses using tech smartly. Are businesses using technology to replace human connection? And actually, technology, automation, AI shouldn't take us further away from people. It should bring us closer to people. So I know that the theme of the Power Hive, Keith, this year is making human connections. So just tell us a little bit about that and why that's an important message for 2025.
There's two sides to this, and I'm going to bring the really positive side to it first. We've touched on it so many times. It's lovely to hear that both tech guys talking about the importance of human element in the recruitment sector. Tony, like myself, on the agency side, or certainly our background is agency side, we would obviously say that's the most important thing. But I think for us, we've spent so much time getting the best in class of the technology companies, and I don't want to sound too sycophantic. There is a reason why Gary's on here, and a reason why Matt's on here. They are probably the world leaders, or certainly in the top 5 of what's available out there, if not in the top 3 or 1. And so we've always promoted in the Power Hive, use your systems and processes and technology and marketing to become more efficient at what you do, to make your consultants better. I've always had a bit of a hang up with, we used to interview people in S3, or certainly at Progressive, and we put them through the mill. It was so difficult to get in. It was 7, 8, sometimes 9 interviews, right, with multiple people in different locations. And then when you get them in, you ask them to pick up the phone and do daft calls all day. It's like, come on, these are better than that. So when we got the advent of technology and systems and processes, it's like, well, good. This can make it more efficient for that consultant to make more money for their pocket, for the business, and everyone does well. So this year, and I think next year as well, because it's that important, Yes, we've got that stuff, and it's important you speak to people like Gary and people like Matt. But I think if you're not getting the ideology right about what we do in recruitment, which is make people meet each other and hopefully get a job, you're missing the effing point on that. I think that's really important that you get that. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, and I say it's slightly more serious, which where I started the Power Mind. The mental health, well-being, and general healthcare in the industry has deteriorated so much that we just have to do something about it. I don't want to have that on this conversation so much. If people want to contact me, they can do, because it's quite serious, and I don't want to bring the conversation down. But that's another reason why we're doing Human Connections this year, because if we don't tackle that and we don't look after the people in your business, you're missing out. Now, look, I'm going to give you the negative and the positive, cynical side, and the why you should do it side. If you care about your staff, you should look after them so that they can perform better. If you don't care about your staff and you want to earn more money, look after them so they perform better so you can get more money. Either way, just look after your staff. So making Human Connections for us was a big banner.
Yeah.
Nice. Well said. Should we follow that up in terms of Gary? You know, I think one of the things you're talking about, all over your LinkedIn profile, things about the importance of community. And so, you know, what we want to understand is, you know, from a technology perspective, from a Bullhorn perspective, perhaps, you know, what people could take away from that today from you.
Yeah, and I think shameless plug for Keith here, in so much as if you think about what the Power Hive brings to its members,
Thanks,
we've
Gary.
tried to, we've envelopes on his way. We tried to emulate the same thing in a tech capacity, and what I really mean by that, if you think members of Keith's all congregate together every so often to talk about various challenges and trends they're seeing in markets, initiatives they might be working on, things that they need to be aware of. They're all coming together in a safe, secure environment, and they're opening up, quite frankly, in some cases, even to their competitors in the same industry, in the same field. And again, like 10, 15 years ago, this was unheard of in the industry. And now it's almost, accepted, commonplace. And it got us thinking that our technology at Bullhorn lends itself to this, in so much as automation. We often hear people don't know where to start. They all want to do it, but they don't always know where to start. And they don't necessarily know what it can do for them and what they can expect from it, and so on and so on. So funny enough, actually, Matt at Sourceflow was on our first user group, 15, 16 months ago, and we had a mere 10 clients in attendance. And now we routinely attract over 125 every single month. And the essence is that they all come together and talk about automation concepts. And anything that is shared, if you believe that is something that could benefit your agency and it's a challenge that you're trying to overcome, you don't then have to go away and spend thousands on development or implement some sort of third party or middleware in order to do it. It's a code list platform, away you go. So we thought that's a community, if ever there was one. Businesses can help one another if they're willing to share and open up about things that are working for them. And every month we have spotlight speakers, and those spotlight speakers, there is pretty much one criteria that they need to fulfill: is, did that automation lead to revenue generation?
Yeah.
And it's simple, yes or no. And we only ever have the yeses, essentially. So coming back to the points that have been made on this call a few times already, there's a huge opportunity to generate revenue with the data that you already have. And there are people now out there are businesses month over month over month talking about this. So we said that the industry at large is maybe a little bit slow in its adoption of tech and its uptake of certain technology offerings. There's also some businesses out there that are doing some really smart things. And they are the ones that are pioneering, and they are the ones that are succeeding. And whether you think this year 25 is a case, 2024 continuing stagnant, slow market, if that's the case, that to the point Keith was making about looking after your staff, even more reason to automate, even more reason to get streamlined, more efficient, utilize every inch of data that you have at your disposal. And if you think there's a rebound on the cards, again, it's the same narrative. Get upstream, get your house in order. And help your people to be more productive. Take away the busy work. Get rid of silos. Get one source of truth, and have automation and AI working on that source of truth. But let's be really matter of fact. There are businesses out there that are doing it. They're succeeding with it, and they're opening up about it in communities such as ours, which is cool.
Yeah, at the event we had yesterday, Gary, so echo that. There was so we do these brunch and learn quarterlies. We did it in the Northern Quarter in Manchester yesterday. It was brilliant, and we're taking it down to London. Not often, that we get to do stuff first in the north. So we're driving that agenda this year as much as possible. One of the businesses there, though, they said that last year, they'll remain nameless, but they did 68% of their placements came from data already in the CRM last year. Now, if you went back 4 years, that would be unheard of. 6.8% would probably be unheard of, let alone 68%, right? Would be unheard of. And they're trying to drive that up more. Like, they're trying to get it higher. And why are they trying to do that? Well, it's because, you know, I get WhatsApp sent to me from these different groups, like such as the Power Hives, like really good communities. And, you know, I see the LinkedIn recruiter license costs every year now. You know, 30-person recruiter with job posting now is £500,000 over 3 years, right? That's the cost for it. It's just gone up 50%, I think, for a lot of businesses. They just had a hike of that. So I think agencies are getting fed up of it. You listen to John from Finley James on Hisham's podcast recently, talking about how LinkedIn behaved with him. And I'm not here to like slag off LinkedIn too much. These are facts. But like, if you look at how they dealt with him as a business owner, they were largely responsible for the death of Finley James, right? Like, in terms of what, like, could we have saved that business? Well, yes. If there'd been a bit more of a friendlier approach there, I suppose. And I think recruiters are probably getting a bit fed up of it, to be perfectly honest, and quite rightly of that. So I think it's great to be doing more placements from the stuff you have, but there is that part of me that thinks, well, yeah, because you don't want to have to pay for job boards that are going up, and, you know, for all these increasing prices from these, you know, again, diminishing, returning in some cases networks. You want to have your own database that is actually providing for you and doing the hard yards for you. So yeah, 100%. That's why I think we should be on that.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? I was having this exact same conversation with someone yesterday in Scotland, and we were talking about LinkedIn connections, and they told me how many LinkedIn connections they had. I said, how many do you add on a weekly basis? And they told me. And I said, how many of your existing connections do you message on a weekly basis? And they said none. So we're building these museums of people that we never speak to. We've got databases full of them. We've got LinkedIn networks full of them. So I think reconnecting and leveraging our communities rather than building building communities is key. Reaching out to those people. So Matt, I think that's a great point and a wonderful segue into our final topic, which is about candidate and client generation. So I think, you know, the point you just made there is brilliant. That a lot of the times the people that are going to be the vacancies of the future and are going to fill up your vacancies of the future are already in your network. You just need to find them and reliven that conversation. So Tony, I want to come to you if that's all right, first and foremost, and we are drastically running out of time, so they're going to have to be, you know, super concise answers. But candidate and client generation, top tools or top techniques, things you'd recommend for businesses this year to be able to get out there and start attracting candidates and clients.
I'm a big believer, and I have done this myself on several occasions, that you can build a whole business starting with one person. So I like to create simplicity. I don't like to overcomplicate. I was very bored of sitting in multiple boardrooms, throwing ideas around, and then you go out and a couple of actions there, and then you come back. So keep it simple. Whether it's a candidate or a client, let's maybe stop separating them, for one. They're a human being, and they can be either of those things. And if you stay in this industry, they will be both if you have done your job well. So building a relationship authentically, who you are, no point trying to put on anything because you just won't align with that person. You might fill the job and you might have a small relationship, but you aren't going to be connected to that person 5-10 years down the line if you haven't treated yourself. Start small. Again, the big numbers, Keith, I get what you said about the scaling back and the metrics and things like that, but most businesses would snap people's hand off if everybody consistently did one decent deal a month, 10 to 12. Okay, they'd snap your hand off if they could guarantee that. To do one deal per month, you need 2 people, one client, one candidate. So again, this whole ratios, numbers, hundreds, absolutely focus far more on smaller numbers with greater depth, authentically, do a great job, and then it will build from there. And I think people just miss out on that and overwhelm and sell to themselves. yeah, I've seen it, been in it. I've done both sides of it. I've been a biller for a long time, been a leader for a long time. I've owned a business. So I would, again, maybe because I'm getting a bit older, keep it simple.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great thing all round, isn't it? You know, keep it simple. Absolutely, Keith.
Yeah, let me jump on that. I think, can I just give you some quick stats around that? So the market's changed, right? I think you're right, Tony. The averages have shown that the recruiter, when I was doing extremely well in the mid 90s, on average over the year did 110,000. That was the average recruiter's revenue. The average recruiter revenue last year was 110,000. There's a stat there. It's the same. It's never changed. It's not changed out year on year for 32 years that I've been in it. And when I was actually doing extremely, but what's changed is the deals per head ratio in companies seems to have been a different thing. Numbers have gone up, salaries have gone up, rates are reasonably the same, but overall the placement fee's gone up. But in essence, the revenue overall has been the same. However, for 7 years, whilst I was actually a recruiter and a team leader, billing manager, I only ever worked in that whole time with 60 companies. That was it. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a database there of 7,000 Oracle managers, but I only ever dealt with 60 people. And so, Tony, you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. I know it's not necessarily one-to-one, but the point is the same, that a very small number will get you rich along the way. So just focus on it.
Yeah. Great point. Absolutely. And I think as much as we're talking about technology, which is, talking about, massive data, hundreds and thousands, if not, millions of candidates and clients all over the place. We have to be mindful of that, but we also have to be mindful of the bottom end of the funnel, and actually, and it is about people dealing with people and hopefully trying to, transact a successful match with them. Gary, top, tips, techniques, signposting from yourself there.
I think extending on the two comments there, if we keep it simple, let's just ensure as well that those 10 to 12 placements are done efficiently. Let's not make sure that actually, as we're billing and making placements, that money is creeping out on external sources and needlessly on job boards and whatever else, because it's just eating into that margin all the time. And again, it slightly differs depending on the maturity and age of an agency. Startups, this is less applicable, but mature, established businesses, especially those working in niche verticals, I would say, it's just to reiterate the same point. You have the majority of the data you could ever hope to have in order to trade successfully. Challenge yourselves around whether that LinkedIn subscription needs to be as expensive as it is. Challenge yourselves on whether you're recycling candidates all the time that were already under your nose. If you don't know that, there's an opportunity right there in your own right to go and find that out, and maybe as well just be prepared to survey your staff once in a while. To Keith's point about looking after people, the boys and girls at the coalface are the ones that know where you're inefficient. They're the ones that know where your processes are too click heavy. They're the ones that are getting frustrated sometimes with needless steps in the process that they don't understand why they have to conform with, and then we wonder why sometimes they don't want to perform data entry. So survey your people, get a grip on what it's like to work on your shop floor, as it were, because chances are you're going to find some great opportunities right there and then for automating and streamlining your business, making people happy.
And can I just jump in with one thing as well? Just to be clear, I'm not actually saying that 10 to 12k per month is that once we've cracked that and everybody has it, then we're happy. What I'm saying is, if you can crack the simplicity of each consultant, regardless of level, of them doing just that one simple deal a month, which is that I've met someone, they're great, I'm going to do everything, I'll do a couple of them. We're talking maybe 4 to 8 hours work a month to do that one. If you can crack that, they will, or they ought to be doing the 4, 5, 6 per month.
Yeah.
They are your super billers. And we all know that's less than 5% of the consultant population. So there's a real disconnect there. And I think it's because of focus of business owners.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a consultant the other week, and I sat down, and they'd just gone into sort of BD and ventured into doing some BD, and was generating leads and names of, decision makers within organizations. And I sat down with him and I said, okay, how have you been doing over the last few weeks? Yeah, I've got loads. Okay, how many have you got? 374 companies, contacts within companies, and leads all in a list. And I went, fabulous. What are you going to do with that? And he was like, I don't know. Because he was just piling information into lists and wasn't thinking exactly like you said. And Keith Fox has said in the comments, 10 clients that will use you twice a year. I mean, he works on a retained model. But you don't need all this data, or if you do, you need to know how to then wade through the noise to pull out the real quality stuff that you can then work on as a business owner. I see everyone sat at a desk doing recruitment as they're running their own business there at the end of the day. So getting to think smartly about that. Matt, any sort of final words from you just around that whole candidate client attraction piece?
Yeah, 100%. I think my camera might be a bit janky, but hopefully you can hear me a little better than the camera actually looks. It looks like I'm calling from my 28K dial-up modem back in the day at the moment. The technology 8. Yeah, look, I mean, just to reiterate what some of the people have said here, there was a guy called Kevin Kelly, and back in 2008, he wrote this thing called 1,000 True Fans, is like on his blog. I think it's kk.org, his blog was. And he had this thing, like, if you want to make $100,000 a year, you get 1,000 fans of like your band, and you get them to spend $100 a year with you. And it's like so simple. Like, yeah, like a CD, go to see you live at a gig, buy a t-shirt, and that's kind of like it. 1,000 fans across America, and you can make $100,000 doing that. And like the simplicity of it has not changed in business. Like, I remember reading it when it, like, years ago, like in 2008, and thinking, oh God, that's basically business, isn't it? Like that's how to grow a business. Like, that's the fundamentals. And I don't think that's changed at all in what we've done at Keith wrote, 10 clients that use it twice in a year. Like, that's kind of the simplicity of it. You don't need everything to have a really nice life and build a good business. The bigger business is just scale that concept. That's all they do, right? It's about that complicated. In terms of what I'd say is, and I just saw James's comments in the chat here, and look, James, I am with you on that. The concept that
James Pickering, not me.
Yeah, James Pickering, to avoid any legal on that side. Yeah, the reality is, like, is what I've been saying and what a number of people have been saying for a few years now, which is about owned media. I think that it's time that recruiters take back the control into their own world. We spoke about how you can do that in your CRM and then automate on top of that. But your website obviously is a central focal point for your business. The better that is, the more people you drive back into that to convert on your place. It means that you're not sharing it like it happens on job boards. You drive a candidate in a job board, that candidate gets shared across all of the other users of that job board, right? It goes to everybody else, right? You are literally stoking the fire of your competitors, really, when you do that. It doesn't happen on your own website, right? That's your kind of like siloed, that's your part of the world that you own. Your Facebook account, your Twitter account, to a degree, LinkedIn, how that works. Like driving your candidate engagement back into the media that you can own and control should be a focus this year for businesses looking to, some people have been much more vocal than I am about it. I'm like semi-vocal, but looking to down the job board spend as much as you possibly can. Job boards have been a drop in return for years now, right? Like, it's no secret that the performance hasn't been there. But people still just pay because they think it works. Get the data out your CRM, what is actually working for you, and then focus on those channels back. Because you probably already have all the people that are applying for your jobs on the job boards already in your CRM waiting to place. That is just a fact. Yeah. And I've done this for a long time now, and that has never been wrong. So, I would say, like, pull back to your owned media, focus on it, double down on it, and start to make more money back in stuff that you can control rather than relying on all these other sources.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to take that as your top tip because I think he probably couldn't sum it up any better, and you've probably stolen the thunder of Gary because he's probably going to say that. So, Gary, I'm going to come to you. What's your top tip for everybody as we wrap this session up?
My top tip is that if you're sat there thinking to yourself that you're not necessarily getting the most from any technology investment, ask yourself if there's a community out there to help you tap into it. Because for every other aspect of your business, you're probably engaging with people, getting opinions, seeking the thoughts of your peers. That shouldn't be any different with tech, and that's certainly the Bullhorn view on things. So get involved in a community that can help you unlock the potential in those investments. If you don't have that today, you're probably operating with blinkers on and wondering why you're not getting the full value back from that investment. So arguably there's a better way.
Brilliant.
Great
okay,
point.
Tony, what's your top tip for people listening? And you've said some corkers, by the way, so it shouldn't be hard for you to find one that you're going to focus on.
Well, we haven't really touched on this, but going back to the whole essence of people are the center of everything. Like I say, from my own experience, I've developed 2 businesses that center around wellness and coaching. So for me, I would say incorporate a bespoke level and focus on wellness and a coaching mindset or a coaching program for all individuals, not just top performers, because potential comes at different phases and the one constant is your business. However that looks, be curious about it, ask some questions, trust your gut, as and when you chat to some people who feel right. But I can absolutely say with my own experience and confidence that your more fulfilled individuals as a whole will be your longest, most loyal, highest performers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Keith?
Oh my God, we got time.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make time for you.
Yeah. Okay, everything that we've said today should come down to one measure, and that is, what do you do to realize the value in your business? That's it. So I would watch this again if some of it was unclear. I would go back over the simple singular notes that each of us have made, but take away that if it's not making you money, stop doing it. And if you're not doing something that is, then start learning how to do it better.
Love
it.
Joe, anything for you to finally say?
Me? I didn't know I was going to have to come up with it.
No, I'm not asking you a top tip. You can just do it part of the wrap up. Don't worry.
And I don't have my own banner. You know what? My top tip. I'm gonna piggyback on Gary's top tip, which is find your tribe, find your community. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's very, very lonely running your own business, running your own desk. You don't know whether you're doing the right thing half the time. So find people who you can communicate with. We were really good at this in COVID. We all went out and got talking to each other because we all wanted to know if everyone else was all right or if it was us that was a bit odd. Continue to do that. We don't need to break connections with people just because we're not living in a dystopia anymore. We still need to connect with people. It's what we were born to do. So I'm going to go with community.
Good. Okay. Matt, I'm going to give you a 10-second response if you like. Cause I feel I didn't come to you with top tips. I just took your last statement. It's like a Dalek moving.
Yeah, I know it's off-putting, but actually I quite like it. Focus on what's working, do more of it. About as simple as that.
Listen, we've had a whistle stop tour today. Joe and I wondered whether this would be like herding cats with having 6 of us on the screen, but thank you to each of our guests, Keith, Tony, Gary and Matt, as well as to my co-host Joe. It's been a fabulous time. I hope you've enjoyed listening with us. Thanks very much, I say, for all your time. Do listen back to this because there were some corkers in terms of some really good pieces of information. Connect with these guys on LinkedIn, even if you don't buy Bullhorn or SourceFlow or join Power Hive. I mean, you should do, or engage with Tony on some support that she can offer you. Please do connect with them because you'll find that worthwhile. So in the end, thank you very much for joining us on the first Retained Recruiter show of 2025. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. And guys, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute honour.
Good to see you all. It's nearly February.
Thanks for having me.
At some point, we'll get to February.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.